Hi, guys.
Hello. How's it going, Cassie?
Good. It's crazy not to see you all the time. I miss it. It's very weird. I was like, ooh, I need to ask you a question. I need to email you about this.
Since it looks like we're going to have a small group on today, I'd love it if everyone could go on video if you have that capability. Hey, Sarah, I haven't seen you in forever either.
Oh, I know. I'm coming on. Hold on. There we go. How are you?
Good.
That's
How's it
good.
going?
Okay. It's good. It's busy, but that's good. I don't usually get to jump onto this one, so I thought I would see what was going on.
No, I appreciate that. So our topic today is internal communication. That was the topic chosen last month. So we could go so many different places with that. What are your guys' thoughts? Where do we start?
I mean, I'd like to know what people are using. What's the best form as far as, I don't know, a couple different things. Like right now we just text back and forth or call, and I feel like that's not really sustainable for very long. And so I was thinking about getting Slack, but I'm not sure that all the agents and or the Rainmaker want to really have another platform because they like texting right now. And then two, is anyone using like a phone system where that's routing calls to different agents based on what their skill set is? If somebody calls in randomly, and if they are, what's great as far as that?
Who's using Slack right now?
And what we actually do, we have different channels on there. So each transaction actually has its own channel, and only the people who are relevant to that transaction are in that channel. Now I'm getting, as the DO, I get added to all the transactions, and I do take the time at least once or twice a day to actually look through everything and make sure it's been resolved or answered. So things have been taken care of. Then we have one channel that says leadership, which is just for the leadership team. We got one channel that says general, where we submit our 411s. So it's kind of nice that you have different ways to organize it. And we actually added a second platform to it for the Arizona expansion team. But I do know a lot. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Do you find it's easy to find things? Because I feel like with texting, the reason why I want to implement it is things get lost. Like TC asked a question 3 months ago and now forgot the answer and isn't going to go look back in text form.
As long as they know which transaction it was referring to, yes, it is easy to find. What I find is that somebody needs to go in there, and we are supposed to delete the channels as the transactions end. However, I think there are some channels in there that actually need to be cleaned out. So I need to put that on somebody's to-do list, extra job. When you have time, go in there, make sure there is. I found several channels that nobody ever used, you know, to get those cleaned out.
Do you have the free version or the paid version?
Christina, do we have the free version or the paid version for Slack? Free. The free one. Yeah. Okay. Now we do have listings. So the list, it basically each transaction goes from listing to live to under contract. So there's different stages, and the title of the channel gets changed as it moves along.
Okay.
So Joey, Lori, and Haley, you just came on. We're talking about Slack. Are any of you guys using Slack?
No, we're not.
We are not.
Joanne, are you using Slack?
Oh, I'm on Haley's team. Sorry. No, we're
Okay.
not.
Okay. So Cassie, I've used Slack before and I love it over text because it's so manageable. Like, even like you said, going and finding, you can do a search and it'll go find that information for you.
Mhm.
If it hasn't been deleted, like B says, if that transaction's being taken out, you're going to have lost that data, but.
Well, and I talked to another, I'm actually a DOO on a team, not a transaction manager, but I talked to another one and she said that she'll just save old properties Slack channel, like on a separate doc. And then if it ever needs to be brought up again for any reason, they have like the communication that was talked about. And I feel like that's also good because we talk a lot in person. And then I feel like if you talk about it in person, you don't have anywhere to reference it, you might have forgot the information too, which I want to avoid multiple conversations on the same topic.
Right.
That's what we're doing right now, is having the same conversation over and over. So.
And what's happened to me when I'm a pretty new DO, pretty new to the industry, really new to the industry and DO. And I got the DA sheets. I actually pay my own, our own agents. And there was some information, the DA sheets didn't make sense to me and I had to go track the information down. Well, they were verbal agreements that people had. Yet at that time, I wasn't following along in Slack. So I didn't know anything about it. It took me a while to figure out where to track everything down.
So who would be on the Slack channels? Is it just like the TC and the agent that are working on the transaction, or are there other people that would be on there, like outside, like the client or the attorney, or no, just internal?
For us, it's just internal. They do have texts for more external.
Okay.
So they have a text thread for the external communication.
The nice thing about using Slack for internal as opposed to text is all your texts can get lost, right? I don't even get that many texts anymore. And I'm amazed if I go and look through all my texts for the day, I'll have like 20 texts and I'm not even active like you guys are anymore. And they get lost so easy, where on Slack, you can set reminders so they pop back up, or you can mark something as important. Like, there's a lot of management that you can do within so that you don't lose track of something.
How do the agents use it? Like, I could see if, for our TC, if she's sitting at her computer, right, you can do it, but do they have it on their phone? Is there an app for it? And
I have it on my phone. I have it on my phone. I actually work mostly from my phone in Slack, unless I'm, when I do put 411, I usually do that on a computer from Google Drive, and then I download it on my computer as a screenshot. But I know a lot of employees, that's the only way they use it, is on a phone as an app.
So one of the main questions was like getting agents on board with it, right? When they're so used to using text message as their communication. So were you a part of implementing that as a new system?
I was not. No, that was in place when I came on the team.
Gotcha. Has anyone else been a part of changing the communication preference between team members?
I was, when we adopted it on our team, and I'm just speaking up because I don't think any of you had that experience. Yeah. So I'll share my experience. It was so user friendly and so easy to manage the data that was coming at you, that everybody, once they got in there and started to realize how easy it was to use, there was no problem moving everybody to Slack. It wasn't hard to use, and they'd end up with 100 texts at the end of the day. And this pared it down. So the only texts they were getting were from their clients. Any team communication was going through Slack. So it allowed them to pay attention to their clients and what was coming through from their clients, and then just go to what the team communication was when they had free time.
So the approach is we want to make life and communication easier for you. Here is our suggestion. Worst case scenario, try it out for 2 months or 3 months and go from there. And by then, if they use it right and they're serious about it, they will see all the advantages of using it.
Yeah. Because they don't need to see everything going on with the transaction, yet we want to keep them involved. And then they get to choose the time that they're going to go look at what's going on with the transaction. And anything coming through immediate on text is going to be from an agent or a client.
And you can actually put that just address it to the one person, and that one agent will know that this is addressed to them, or no, it's just a general one.
Yeah, there's just so much management within Slack. Aaliyah, are you guys using Slack?
We don't. We use Trillion, which I think is also like a messaging service. Like we pay yearly for it, but we struggle with the agents don't get on there nearly enough and check it, and then they'll want to text and then they'll not see our text, and so kind of the same thing, but it's a similar service. I've never heard of Slack before, but you can do like private chats, group chats. Like we have some between our admins, some with each agent, and then we can always track. So like even if you close your messages, you can go into your settings and view anything you've ever sent.
So it sounds pretty similar.
Yeah, we've struggled with getting everyone on the same page of what their preference is, because agents will say that their preference is text, and then we'll send them a lead and never hear back, and they'll say it got lost in their texts. So
yeah, and we didn't give a preference when we brought it out. It was like all team communication is on this platform. Anything coming through from text is going to be from outside the team. So in making that like clear-cut line, I think it helped, because when you start to make fuzzy rules, then it gets more complicated.
yeah, I like that too, because we'll text and like sometimes the agents will go on tangents over the weekend. And I'm like, I have hourly employees that you really shouldn't be bothering right now. Like it's a Saturday afternoon. They don't need to know how many showings you guys are going to.
And I think setting the rules of engagement, so to speak, is big, that people do have an understanding, like you said, hey, it's the weekend. Yeah, you can't bother them. But then certain fires need to be handled. And our TCs and LCs are pretty good. Still, the new LC is still kind of a training in progress, but they're pretty good about picking it up when it is important.
Well, and that might be helpful too, like on a weekend, if it's not something immediate, they could just put it in Slack so they don't forget. And then like the TC on Monday can see it and say, oh yeah, let me email that, or whatever it might be.
This is the other great thing in Slack is you can put in there when you want it delivered. So let's say you want to put something in on the weekend, but you don't want it to show up for the TC till Monday. You can actually, you put in like a symbol and it actually won't show up till Monday.
So that's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Very helpful. I think I'm going to just do it anyways and make them be on board after this.
And it's like I said, it's always how you approach it. It's like, we want to make your life more efficient and easier. You want to spend your time with your clients, not with the TCs or texting or finding the texts. My rainmaker pretty much told me if I needed to get a hold of him, you got to call him, because even a text just gets lost.
Well, and it's kind of too, I'm trying to get things off the rainmaker's plate. Like he gets all call, all text right now. And I'm like, how do you even, if I were him, I wouldn't be able to find anything. And so I'm like, let's talk somewhere else, figure something else out.
And you may want to research a couple other things. You know, there is other options out there. Asana is one that some people use to communicate, a little bit different calendar system, client system, but there's different systems out there. Do some research and then decide. But yeah, I would make the decision. I wouldn't leave it up to the agents to make the decision. No way.
Thank you.
Welcome.
What was your other question, Cassie?
Phone system, like if you have a routing phone system thing that we use.
We use Ring Central. Our TCs and LCs, our employees, ISA, sorry, have their own individual work numbers. And they record all the calls, so you can actually go in and listen to them, which is a great training device.
Question on Ring Central. So we use it as well, and our agents have horrible service with it, like dropped calls all the time. Clients can't hear them. Does anybody else experience those issues?
I haven't heard anything from our agents, but our agents don't use the Ring Central numbers.
Oh, okay.
Where I've had issues with Ring Central, with video, with our VAs in the Philippines, that their cameras aren't working, and it seems to be a recent development that when they screen share something, it's so fuzzy you can't read it. That kind of stuff is what I've had issues with.
Okay, got it. Does anybody else use Ring Central or experience issues with it? No. How about Vonage? We switched from Vonage to Ring Central because we were having so many issues with it, and it's basically the same thing.
Interesting.
Hmm.
I've used Ring Central in the past, but not recently, so I couldn't tell you problems for today, but I haven't heard anything either from clients as far as problems with it.
Okay. Like our manager today tried like for 15 minutes to dial out, and she's like, I can't call this like $1 million buyer because my phone is cutting out. Like it was ridiculous.
Michelle?
I was going to say, of clients that have like recently joined Ring Central and have had no bad experiences at all. So yeah,
first.
and with you have trying 2 different platforms in your area, that's interesting. It might be an area issue.
And like we are the suburbs of Chicago, so like we're not super rural. Like
Yeah.
we have plenty of cell phone towers and everything, so it's super strange. Okay, thanks.
Has anyone heard of Grasshopper? That was a recommendation I got from somebody else. Is that good?
Heard
Bad?
of it, I've never used it or have no clue about it, but I've heard of it.
Real people reviews is always better than reading online.
Yeah.
What other
So what-
questions do we have about internal communication?
I was going to ask, like, what is your guys' gaps that you're seeing? Like we're looking for platforms, but like, what does this solve? What is your guys' biggest pain points that you have?
I could tell you mine. Who knows? Twofold. Everything goes to our rainmaker right now. Every single call, every single referral, everything goes to him. Absolutely everything. So that's the problem. And then also with our TC, she doesn't know any information on the clients. Like she's getting involved when the contract is under contract, or the contract is signed. So she doesn't know like anything about the clients. So if they live in Florida and they can't sign in Denver or in Nashville, sorry, I don't even know where I am anymore. She has a hard time like keeping up with what's actually happening with each transaction, and just she wants better communication on her end so she can serve the clients better, which totally makes sense as well. So that's our 2 big communication problems.
One thing our team does for that is when the agents hand in a contract, they're supposed to also hand in a job form, and on that job form gives a lot of the has the agent answer a bunch of questions on just the contract in general, but then also on the clients. So our transaction coordinator will know, is this a divorce situation, right? So they know not to call and be like, hey, we're so excited, congratulations, because it's not really that type of call you should make. So they get a lot of information from the agents that way. And that's how they start the transaction process.
Can you possibly send me that as an example? Would that be okay? I'll put my email on the chat.
Yep.
Joanna,
And
go ahead, V.
And we use CISU transaction forms. So there is on the bottom where you put notes. Most of that information, divorce situation, do not call, that kind of stuff is all down there. But also in our listing paperwork, there is a form in there that you cover all that information, where the listing coordinator actually goes through all of that.
Joanne, what does your handoff look like?
We use Jot forms also. I'm on the buyer contract to close side, and we use Jot forms also, and it's been very fluid. As things come up, we add them to the Jot form. Also, to your point, you said about the remote signing for out-of-town clients, and we did have a problem with that right before the pandemic, and we brought it up in the meeting and made an example, of that. We found out a week before settlement that our client was out of town. So we brought that up as an example to the team. Unfortunately, it's never happened again. We get that information as soon as possible. And when I'm submitting my title order, that goes right into the title company the first day in capital red letters. So we're all in it together. But yeah, we called the agent out and said, you've got to not tell us a week before settlement that we need a remote signing. So.
And if it's out of country, they need a U.S. embassy. That was one of mine that got dropped in my lap once. It's like, oh my gosh, where's the closest U.S. embassy?
That's crazy.
Thank you. That has not happened to us yet, but I'm sure it will. So thank you.
And we actually have a lot of out-of-state. I live in South Dakota, and we have a lot of out-of-state buyers right now. So a lot of the closings anymore are remote. You just send, but that's the communication we have early. Are they going to be there or not? So, yeah. But that's just commonplace anymore. Dot loop. That's great for that.
Anybody have any other solutions for everything goes to the rainmaker?
Remove his phone number. From ever, and that's
Take over his phone number.
It's true though.
Yeah, but I don't think you'd like that. I can't remove it, but I gotta find a solution first.
We put him on a round robin with everybody else on the team for any inbound leads. So he still feels like every once in a while he can still answer the call. So he still feels important, but we give it, most likely he's now like isn't answering the phone. And then for like websites like Zillow and stuff like that, I put in our ISA's number and just didn't tell him about it, and he hasn't complained yet. So
Love that.
Like that.
He doesn't even know.
Actually, my rainmaker was complaining a while back. It's like, I'm getting all these random calls. Where the hell are they coming from? Where is my phone number where it shouldn't be? So he has had his taken off a while back.
I think that's a huge change when you hit that point where it's always been their phone number, and then you have to make the change that it's never their phone number.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, and I feel like they want to feel important and they want to feel needed. So if you're presenting that in a certain way that like you are like showing them that they're still valuable and we still need them in our lives, but here's the benefit for them, and they don't have to worry about random phone calls at odd hours, and you can get your time back with your sons and like show them the benefits for that. That's been really impactful.
Hey,
Do any
Lee,
of you? Oh,
did-
sorry.
how did you change all the marketing, right? Because Cassie, probably all the marketing has his phone number on it.
Yeah, everything, all the websites,
We have
lead source, everything.
we have one number that is like the number that we put on the signs, and then we put it into Better Voice, and then all of our agents have, like, if a call comes in, it goes to every agent on the team, and whoever answers first gets it. So we just switched it out so his number's not on anything except for his email signature.
And then, I don't know what all of your roles are, if you're all TCs or not, but if you, since I'm the DO, right now I'm getting calls reverted to me sometimes, like he has a text message. So if he pushes a button, it'll say, call me instead. Do any of you find, or have you had any trouble like answering phone calls where you don't know the client and, or you're not an agent yourself? And maybe that's just my issue. I don't know.
I don't get those calls yet.
We have a similar process. We have an office phone number, but our rainmaker can forward her phones to us. So there's a lot of times where people will call us, they'll ask for her. We'll say she's not available. They're like, okay, I'll try her cell phone. So we have to tell them, like, you're going to call her cell phone, but if she doesn't answer it, you're going to get me again. So we deal with that too, but we just tell them that, you know, they're in a meeting, they can't get to their phone, and you can call 100 times, you're still going to talk to one of us.
Yeah, we revert it back to our office line, and that gets blasted out to all of our TCs and listing coordinators, and then they figure out where it needs to go, if it needs to go to an agent or not. He's not on that number. I'm working on creating a Who's Your Who guide that everybody on the team is going to reference to. So like if that kind of situation comes up, Nick can go to the sheet and be like, a client's calling me, give it to our admin number. If whatever else is calling me, give it to whoever else, like that kind of thing, that we're going to give to like all of our agents and stuff, so they know who they need to reach out to, because I definitely don't want to be the person 100% of the time.
That's great too, because you don't want that person to have to talk to 3 people too. I mean, how frustrating is it when you call someplace and you get transferred 3 times before you end up with the person you need to talk to?
Exactly.
So I'd love to hear from the TCs on this call, what your biggest hurdle is around internal communication.
Mine would just be different agents that want different communication. Like I have one agent that's like, just text me. And then I have another agent that will use our messaging service Trillion. And then I have another agent that wants to email every time like a document will come in, and he will email me and say a document just came in. And I have to reiterate, like, I get the same document you get. Like, you don't have to remind me every time. So just like not having everyone on the same page, which when you only have a team of 5 or 6 agents can be doable, but the bigger you get, it's just really hard catering to each agent and how they want to be communicated with.
And I think that's where you set some boundaries and go, you know what, you sent me this, I'm not answering anymore. This goes straight in the trash, or this goes straight there, because here is our rules, here is how we communicate, and we all need to be on the same page.
We did a survey of everybody on our team, and we gave them 3 options between like a phone call, text, or an email. And then like, in case of an emergency, how can we reach out to you? And then we asked like a bunch of other different questions too. So the TCs and listing coordinators refer back to that. And if an agent's like, well, just text me. Okay, well, your sheet says to call you. So I called you. Do you need me to update your sheet, or do you really just want a text message?
Yeah, sometimes I think we give them way too many choices. We just need to say, hey, this is how it is.
If I think about my TC who has right now about 100 transactions, needs to figure out every time they communicate with an agent, what's their preference is, it's not sustainable.
Well, and sometimes they want to over communicate with us. Like when you're a TC doing 100 transactions, you don't need that agent to text you every time something was signed. Like you have your process of how to know it's done, and them communicating with us is just as inconvenient as if we were to try and communicate with them.
I think a lot of times we know what they do as an agent, yet they don't necessarily know what we do as admin. And so that's why they over communicate, because they're not quite sure what your process is. They've never done it, a lot of them, right?
Right.
I think for us, this is Rachel. She's our TC and I'm the DOO. She just started like a month ago. And so we just sat down with the agents and kind of went through her whole checklist. And we were like, this is the system. You either buy in or not. And so I think that's really helped, so they know what to expect from her and she knows what to expect from them.
Yeah, we kind of did the same thing. We started doing, like, during our weekly meetings, we would go over like a certain process, like when earnest money is received, here's how we handle it. So then that agent knows, like, just because you got the earnest money email, you don't have to tell me you got it because I got it too. Like letting them know what we're CC'd on. Because I think they still forget, like anything our agents get in CTME, we are CC'd on it no matter what. But every so often they'll still be like, oh, we just got this. So just letting them know like what we receive versus what we don't. And I think that helps too.
Which also goes to the more we can be communicating with those people who are sending things, to send them just to the TC, right, is huge. And nobody's chasing documents or wondering if somebody else got them.
For us, all our documents pretty much run through the dot loop. So you know where to go to look where everything is, or if everything is there.
Yeah, and it's more like stuff like title work or yeah. Joanne, what's your biggest challenge with internal communication?
I was just thinking about that it's having the agents update us during the transaction, because it's and we use a RealVolve for this, and we have set up automated messages that go out right before settlement. But there's nothing worse than you're headed into settlement, you get the Alta and the price is different than what you have, the contract price. You don't know the contract price has changed. You don't know settlement has been moved. And like I said, we've set up a system for that, but the agents forget to copy us sometimes, and we're kind of left playing catch up. But we're working on that with everybody.
What have you guys done to compensate for that?
But we've set up an automatic reminder in our system that we use a certain number of days before settlement to send out to them, hey, and say, hey, do you need to update your TC on this? So that we're not caught surprised. And I've gotten to the point, if I'm in dot loop for something else and I see an addendum that I don't recognize, I make a point of clicking into that addendum to see what it's about. And then if I have to reach out to the agent for an update. So I make a point of being nosy and saying, hey, you know, you forgot to tell me about this. You know, what can I do?
I didn't thought about that, Joanne, but that's one of the nice things. If the agents aren't allowed to do the addendums themselves, they have to ask the TC to do it. that's one nice thing about having that process in place, because then you always know what's going on, even though it's extra work.
We try, and whenever they say, hey, I'm putting together this addendum, I'll say, well, can't I do that for you? Let me help you. Let me do this, because and that way you can go, make some phone calls or do what else you need to do. So I do try to take that back from them whenever I can, and to remind them that is literally my whole job, is to do this for them so they can be out there making the sales.
Other questions do we have around internal communication? Nothing?
Where is Mark?
All of our problems are solved? Or at least we have some thoughts around them?
So this is my Ring Central office number for area.
So we've covered platforms, we've covered agent communication, we've covered handoff, the handoff from the agent to us, the TCs. Is there anything we're missing?
Okay, I'm going to throw one out there to you. Since I'm on the buyer side, I'm placing the title order, I'm sending the contract to the lender, so I can control whose email gets put on it. We have the co-agent needs to be the main point of contact, not our rainmaker. I get to control that. But on the listing side, I'm not placing the lending order. I'm not placing the title order. Folks keep putting our rainmaker's name on everything. He's getting bombarded with all these emails from lender and title, and we're trying to figure out the most effective way to tell the buyers, stop.
We have
Buying agents, and we just don't know how to do it because his name is the first one that appears in MLS, his name and his email. So that's what they put in there. And we've put a disclosure sheet in that says your primary contact is this agent, not this agent. And they're still giving his email address out to everybody. And we just don't know how to communicate that.
Do you have to have his email in the MLS?
Yes, our brokerage requires that he be listed as the selling agent and that who's actually the primary agent be listed as the co-agent. So that's a non-negotiable.
And that's okay, but do you have to have his actual email? And I asked that question because on our team, we had an email address that went to the whole team, right? So that whoever needed the email got the email. So it wasn't his personal email, it was like a team email.
Yeah, we've talked about that. And unfortunately, I don't know who else is in the mid-Atlantic here. His email is also tied to his billing and his notifications and his warnings. So we need to be careful how we're doing that. I think Haley was looking into it. I just didn't know if anybody else had any other ideas, because his inbox is, him and Haley, who has his EA of access to the emails, faithfully forward them out to us so the right party can address it. But if we could just take that whole thing off their plate, it would be amazing.
So could you legally put a team email in there instead of his personal?
That's what we were looking at, but that's the thing. The email is also tied to billing and any notifications. So we've got to be careful
who it goes
that we're doing that correctly. So,
on our end, I feel like I guess I'm not understanding it correctly. I'm not sure, but our Rainmaker's email is on same, it has, everything's under his name. And the listing side or the buyer side or whatever it is, all the paperwork is through his name. And then the agent that brings in the contract sends out the initial email with the TC attached and says, these are the people and the clients, and says, these are the people that are going to be working, and the agent on the other team, and says, we're all going to be working together for the transaction to close. Whatever they end up saying. And then the TC then always keeps the agent on the email and never reattaches the Rainmaker. So he doesn't get any of the emails after it goes under contract, because the agent on the other side, the listing agent, if it's a buyer, knows to contact only the agent on our team and the TC for any communication. And they don't ever attach.
Fortunately, we have that worked out with the buyer agent and the buyer TC. It's
Yeah.
all the calls and emails from lenders, appraisers, title companies, all these third parties. We're just trying to take off our Rainmaker's plates, and we can't figure out how, because we can't control where his information goes when we're on the listing side, and it's the buyer agent who's posting up all this information to the third party is all.
Can you also post the information to the third party? That is, as you say that, Joanne, that is something we did. So even though like the buyer would send everything to the lender, we would also send everything to the lender and say, hey, this is your main point of contact for this. Please send all emails here. So even though it was the other party who was technically responsible, we also communicated.
That's what we do too. So we say we talk to that lender on that side, all of that, so that we tell them, this is who you should be communicating with if there's any issues or anything. And then we bring in the agent that's doing the deal, but we only bring in the Rainmaker if it's absolutely necessary. Even though he's the one listed, it doesn't matter.
I made a note of that. I usually don't do the listings, but our listing coordinator is in Europe for 3 weeks. So I'm going to be doing listings this week, and I'm going to be able to see where we might have any holes in the process or where we need any improvement. So I'm going to go in and look at that. Because that's why Rose isn't on the call. She's in Spain for 3 weeks. So I'm going to go in and see if there's any holes in the process and see if we can add something into her process to maybe head that off, because it's for the volume we do, he's getting a lot of emails.
That's pretty lucky that she gets to leave for 3 weeks.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we told her there's 2 of us handling everything, and we have 2 people for backup. So we're totally covered right now. So we told her it's a family wedding. And, we said, please, go enjoy yourself. It's your family. You will never get this opportunity to do this again. So we're just, and like I said, it gives us a great opportunity to see if there have been any holes in her process or anything we could help her with, because she's only been shouldn't say only, but she's been in the position for about a year. So it's a good time to check in on her and maybe see how we could help her a little more, because she's gotten really proficient, but as it gives me a chance to go in and look at her process. So I made notes. Thank you all.
Anything else we'd like to cover under internal communication? If we're good, then let's talk about a topic for next month.
Maybe like external communication and like draft emails, client communication, like that. Unless we just covered that and I missed it.
No, we actually didn't cover it. And that would actually go along with part of what Joanne's talking about, so that Joanne, you can come back and share with us your solution and how it worked.
I'm putting together emails right now with my thoughts, and unfortunately Haley had to jump off because she had a call with the Rainmaker, but she's going to help me out with this, and we're going to see if we can't get a fix in place for all these emails.
Is everyone good with external communication? Awesome. So people can share when they're having it, how they're having it, what templates they're using, how they set up templates. Cool. All right. Anything else before we go? All good?
All good.
All right. All of you have a great rest of your week.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.